had a guy message me recently on Facebook asking about text game and what he's possibly doing wrong when it comes to texting girls. And the thing is, his whole format was perfect. It was great. His openness online was solid. His everything was congruent, apart from what I'm going to mention. His whole text game gambit was solid, except for one thing. And this might actually be the reason why you suck at getting women hooked and to engage you during text messaging, text session, setting up a date through text or whatever the case may be. Your mistake, what is actually killing you, could simply be the fact that you're not omitting your question marks. You're leaving too many question marks in your text message. Now, when I told the guy this, he was like, just mind blown, because he's likely never heard of this concept before, or this idea that if you omit your question marks, it'll actually be better for you as far as getting a connection with the new girl whom you had messaged on Facebook, Tinder, wherever it may be. But that is actually the deal and the reality on the ground. When you fill your text messages or your inbox messages or whatnot, when you fill them with question marks, it gives off a negative impression. It gives off the wrong impression to the girl. It actually makes the girl think that you need it to work. You're so invested. You're too invested, number one. But you are so invested that you literally need it to work. Whatever it is that you're asking the girl, the fact that you add a question mark to that question, it shows the girl, it sub-communicates to her. In fact, it communicates to her on a conscious level, not even subconsciously. Adding question marks communicate to the girl that you want her to reply, or you need her to reply, and if she doesn't, somehow, your day is crushed. And what likely happens when the girl doesn't reply? You get butt hurt, right? Your day is fucked up. Everything goes downhill from there. You're dwelling on the girl, you're obsessing over her, you have your phone in your hand wondering why the fuck she haven't text back, what you did wrong, why she haven't text, what you could have done differently. You get inside of your head. And the girl senses this. She can read this. Women are very perceptive. And, you get inside your head when she doesn't reply. So a way to avoid this is to not give off the impression in the first place that you need it to work or you need her to reply in order to keep the good feeling about yourself, in order to make your day go good. Alright? So, remember that, guys. Leave the question marks out of your questions. Omit them as much as possible. There are some questions that you will have to add a question mark to. That's a given. But there are most questions guys ask, I would say 80%, 90% of the question guys ask, they don't require a question mark. For instance, if you're going to ask a girl through text, what are you doing later? You don't need a question mark there. The simple fact that you're using a what at the beginning of the question, it already indicates that you're asking the question. The fact that you use an interrogative, which is what, when, where, how, why, those are interrogative, So whatever, the fact that you use what, it signifies a question being asked. So there's no logical purpose to add a question mark at the end. The girl already knows you're asking the question. However, psychologically, this is a huge play into the negative when it comes to, on the guy part at least, because, as I said, you can ask a question like, what are you doing? Without the question mark, and it doesn't give off the impression or the sense that you are reliant on the girl's reply. However, you can ask what's going on with a question mark, as you usually do, and it would totally kill the girl's vibe. It would totally kill the girl's impression of you. It would totally kill her willingness or desire to want to reply, simply by adding a question mark to what are you doing or whatever the question might be. It's really mind-boggling for lots of guys when I break this news to them, because, this is sort of a novel concept and guys haven't really heard of this before. But I have field tested this shit many times. I literally texted girls, whom I've been engaging with text and so forth with over a few days, and it was staggering the amount of of the amount of girls who didn't respond to my questions with question marks in them compared to the girls who responded to the questions that I omitted the question mark. It was staggering. It was staggering. So I said, you know what? I had to share this. And this is not a novel concept to me anyway. I've been doing this for the past 4 or 5 years. I actually learned this from a Julian Blanc video. And it just like totally changed my game, skyrocketed my fucking results ever since I started to implement this concept of his about omitting question marks. You know, and a common thing that guys would say to me whenever I tell them to omit question marks, the common rebuttal is this. Guys will say to me, but Kenny, girls are going to think I'm illiterate. They're going to think I'm stupid. They're going to think I'm uneducated. And my answer to that is always simple. Do nerds get laid? Think about it. Do nerds get laid? Of course they don't. Nerds don't fucking get laid. If anything, if you're basing your lay count or possibility of lays on how educated or uneducated you come off, from that logics, nerds should be racking up the most pussy out of everyone on the fucking earth, right? But they get laid the least. Nerds don't get laid. So-called educated guys don't get laid. And, you know, I mean that as far as, you know, guys who come off as though, well, hey, I want to give the girl the impression that I'm well-schooled. I have this sort of degree. I have a master's here. I went there. I went to this prestigious university. Those guys don't get laid. It is not that having an education and being educated is a turn-off to women. That's not what it is. It's just that guys misconstrue the whole thing and rely on their educational quotient in order to get laid, believing that if I'm intelligent and I come off that way to women, it's a DHV and I get laid more. And it doesn't translate. It is not the case. If that was the case, bad boys, assholes, and jerks would not be getting laid. And those guys are definitely not. They don't come off as educated, right? So I often find myself in the past, when I was just working on this concept, I often find myself happening to dumb down my intelligence, to be honest. Because I notice that the more I come off as a well-schooled and educated guy, the more women I would lose. And I would kill myself wondering, like, how was it I didn't get that girl? I mean, my game was tight, everything was right. What fucking happened? And when I backwards rationalized it and analyzed and break the whole thing down, I realized what it was. I was coming off as too much of an intellectual. I was coming off as too educated. My text was formatted perfectly, perfect punctuation marks, blah, blah, blah. Everything was perfect. And it was literally turning girls off. So when guys want to say, well, Kenny, you know what? If I omit question marks and not add a question mark, it's going to make me look uneducated and the girl is going to reject me. No, she's not. That's not the case. It definitely won't. So when you're communicating with women, you want to dumb your shit down somewhat. Whether it's through text, whether it's one-on-one vibing, personal vibing, you want to dumb your shit down if you are, let's say, somewhat the intellectual. As I am. I'm an intellectual, and I often dumb my game down. So with omitting question marks, this is a huge part of that. And not only that, but once again, the main meat of the issue is what you sub-communicate to the girl. By having your messages and questions chock filled with question marks, it sub-communicates a negative vibe to the girl. It sub-communicates that you're literally there with your phone in your hand, waiting for her to reply. And that is a huge turnoff, once again. It's the antithesis of pre-selection, right? Because if you're pre-selected and you have lots of women to choose from, why would you be there with your smartphone in your hands, waiting for a reply from the girl, if you have lots of girls to choose from? So it is not congruent. It actually exposes you. So when you omit question marks from your questions, girls get the sense of, this guy doesn't really give a fuck if I reply to his message. He doesn't care. Because he would make it specific and definite. He would add question marks. He would make sure his text is just perfect. That alone would make the girl reply. It'll actually force her to reply. The simple fact that you never add a question mark to your question. That alone would force her to reply. Because she knows, or she senses to herself, that you don't give a fuck whether she replied or not. Or else you would have added a question mark to make it definite and specific of what you are trying to ask. And this is why the concept of just shooting off a text is perfect. Shoot off your text. That's how you should text a girl. Whenever you're texting a girl, you should not be there with your smartphone in your hands for 10 minutes trying to structure the perfect message. Just shoot it off. Shoot it off. Shoot off whatever it is. Bam, bam, bam. Shoot it off. Blah, blah, blah. Shoot it off. And the girl gets the sense it. She gets the sense that you are not reliant on her to reply. You don't give a fuck of whether she returned your messages or not. It's no big deal. You are pre-selected. You have choices and options. Whether she replies or not does not change anything as far as you're concerned. Alright? That is the impression you want to give the girl, and that will make her chase you. But the moment you start to try to perfect your messages and, perfect punctuation marks, everything is totally structured well, you're going to see a negative effect on your game overall and the way you communicate and, with women eventually. So, if you've been having problems with connecting with girls through text, you may actually want to take a look at this. Just go through your text messages, scroll down, and look at the way you communicate and structure your text. Are you leaving all these question marks in your text messages? And quite likely, you are. And that may honestly be the reason why you suck at getting girls to engage you and reply to your messages. It may very well be the mistake of adding question marks to every single one of your questions. Now, you can ask questions and leave a question mark or two sparingly. That won't really kill you. But if you're asking questions after the question with a question mark, that is going to be a grand turnoff. Alright? So guys, here it is, and check it out. This is how I do it personally. Whenever I text a girl, this could be a new girl whom I just opened on Facebook, on a dating site, doesn't matter. Whenever I communicate with girls through text, I omit question marks as much as possible. This is what I do, and I internalize this shit on a personal level, so I don't even have to think about it. I just shoot off the message, whatever the message is, whatever the question is, and I omit the question mark. And 99% of the times, I'm bound to get a reply from the girl. Now, before, let's say 4 years ago, when I was using question marks, as every other guy does, my reciprocation rate was way less. It was probably below 60%. And the only thing I changed dramatically since then, or changed at all in my text game, was the omission of question marks. So that showed me right then and there that was the mistake overall in my text game at that point. So, in summary, whenever you omit question marks, it gives the girl the impression that, number one, you're pre-selected, meaning you have other options, so you're not reliant on her to reply. So you automatically give off that impression. And what you avoid doing by omitting question marks is you avoid coming off as a desperate, needy guy who's relying on the girl's messages, relying on her reciprocation. Whenever you add question marks, and especially you overdo it and add more question marks than you should, you give off a negative impression. You give the girl the impression that it is all upon her. Everything is based on her, and her reply would be what affect what you do next. If she doesn't reply, your day is fucked. If she replies, you're happy-go-lucky. Your everything is just perfect for you. But if she doesn't reply once again, you are crushed. That is the impression you give whenever you fill your messages with question marks. It subcommunicates the subtle neediness inside of you. And you want to avoid that at all fucking costs. Alright?